be an international place, placed in international Geneva, so this collaboration with international organizations, both government and non-government organizations, is very important to the Graduate Institute. NORRAG is an associate program of the Graduate Institute. We see ourselves as honest broker, which means we are the ones bringing different constituents together that have diverse perspectives on issues that are important to us in education. And one of them is the whole issue of public-private partnership, financing in education. As you know, it has become even a requirement of GPE and others to have more private involvement in education. That, of course, opens a whole range of issues and new questions that we are interested to help to tackle together with informed dialogue, with data, with evidence. So it is really my pleasure to be here. And I'm among honest and very distinguished guests here that I will be presenting in a minute. Let me just say who the co-organizers are. The co-organizers are the Permanent Mission of Finland, France, and Portugal. And two of them will be speaking after my presentation, my brief welcome note. Then the Geneva Academy of International Humanitarian Law and Human Rights. I saw Joanne in the back. Amnesty International, the Equal Education Law Center, of course, Sylvain Aubry's organization, Global Initiative for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, the Initiative for Economic and Social Rights, and the Right to Education Initiative. When I look at the list, I'm very happy to see that combination, because on one hand, we have countries that are known and in organizations that are known for one thing but not the other. Amnesty International is known for human rights, but not so much yet in education. Finland is dear to all of us and known for education, especially because of PISA, but not yet in rights. So this combination, I think, will be dynamite and very interesting to have these different constituents coming together. Maybe a little bit of promotion on NORRAG. NORRAG has become involved in whole issues of innovative financing in education and public-private partnership. We had a really wonderful philanthropy conference in November with different parts, academics, critical and supportive, but also researchers that had a nuanced view on what is good and what are challenges of philanthropy. We had the private sector, we had philanthropies. So it was a really great kickoff event in Geneva that will be followed by regional events in different parts of the world. The second thing related to the topic is the Right to Education movement. We had voices from the Global South. We had two colleagues editing it that are distinguished colleagues in India on right to education, and we were very pleased to put it up online, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this is just the print version, but the print version is ugly. Once you have online, everything on paper doesn't look so good. So it was a really a great first issue of the NORRAG special issue that we were able to put out just in time for this event. Without further ado, let me introduce the distinguished colleagues that are here. To my left is Terhi Hakala. She is ambassador and permanent representative of Finland to the UN in Geneva. And she is, and maybe that's the opportunity also to, before I welcome the France representative, to welcome also all the other excellences that are in the room and all the other political representatives. And I think I should read their list, even if not all of them are here yet or are not coming, but they are the ones that expressed support and interest in this event. And I will just read it right now before I forget. So let me just read the list of countries with ambassadors or mission representatives. Jordan, Argentina, Morocco, Togo, Pakistan, Palestine, Poland, Costa Rica, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, which I had in the beginning, Finland, of course, the UK mission to the UN Geneva, and Iceland. And of course, I also saw we have representatives from the Swiss government, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Then let me continue with the list of our distinguished speakers. Then we have a representative from France. We have the deputy representative, Monsieur Gave, François Gave, representing France. I'm an academic. I'm not used to, introducing very distinguished political figures. So as an academic, we have it easier. And also, I would like to present Anne Skelton. She's the director of the Center for Child Law at the University of Pretoria and member of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. We had scheduled the Special Rapporteur, Ms. Kumbu Boly Barry, and unbelievably, she was awaiting her diplomatic passport while she was in Dakar, and for a series of unfortunate events, she did not receive that passport in time, so she couldn't come for purely administrative reasons. However, she was kind enough to send a small video clip that I think Sylvain did on very short notice, so it is not a highly professional video clip, but it is still a way for her to be with us. And we will show that video at the end of the round of welcome addresses. Okay? So let me pass the floor to Ms. Terhi Hakala.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction. Dear friends, dear ladies and gentlemen, and very good morning to you. Monday morning, 9 o'clock is always a very good time, to start the week very effectively. I'm very happy that Finland can be one of the co-organizers of this event on private involvement in education. Education is a crucial human rights issue, very close to our hearts. It is nonetheless also one that is of some concern, as currently more than 100 million children are out of school worldwide. We Finns certainly feel strongly about the topic, as education has been something of a key cornerstone of development of our society and continues to be just that. Many of you might be familiar with the Finnish education system, but please allow me to briefly reflect on some of the pillars of it, as I think it's an important reminder and carries a key message for our event and the topic we are here to discuss today. Public education in Finland began in the 1860s already. The fundamental principle of our education system has since its creation been to provide equal, good quality opportunities for learning and growth to every student. This entails removing barriers to learning, physical, attitudinal, or pedagogical, through early intervention and support. The aim is for the same educational opportunities to be available to all, irrespective of their ethnic origin, age, wealth, or other attributes. The structure of our education system reflects these principles. Let me give you a few examples. Our Constitution stipulates that everyone has the right to education. This right should not be interpreted narrowly as a right to be in school, but as a right to learn life skills and obtain knowledge that will help us participate actively in society. It's not just about access, but also about content and teaching methods. In Finland, education is seen as a key to competitiveness and well-being. Our focus has therefore been on ensuring learning outcomes rather than preparing students to perform well in exams. To achieve this, Finland has invested in teacher training. In general education, all teachers are required a master's degree. In vocational education, teachers should have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. The high level of training is seen as necessary as teachers in Finland are very autonomous professionally. The curriculum is important, not just from the aspect of quality of education, but also from the perspective of equality in education. In Finland, the responsibility of ensuring education for all learners falls within the competence of the local authorities, that is, the municipalities. Most institutions providing basic and upper secondary level education are maintained by local authorities or joint municipal consortia. According to our law on education, all schools have to follow the national core curricula. The content and standard of the education needs to be the same no matter where you go to school. The most recent PISA results have, however, given us some food for thought when it comes to gender equality. Unfortunately, boys are being left behind in all fields, a decline which we have seen since year 2006. Gender equality, as well as the learning outcomes for students with immigrant students, are areas that require in-depth analysis and targeted measures. Ensuring non-discrimination and equality in education are core principles of a human rights-based approach. In this regard, it might also be worth noting that Finland has two official languages, Finnish and Swedish. Approximately 5% of students in basic and upper secondary education attend a school where Swedish is the language of instruction. Both language groups have their own institutions also at higher education level. There are funds available for organizing instruction in Roma and Sami languages, as well as for instruction in the migrant pupils' mother tongue. Teachers use educational counseling to guide and support each individual learner, helping them to proceed according to their own capabilities. We strive to ensure that learners with special needs have the support required to allow for them to stay within the mainstream education. Economic accessibility is also ensured. Education is free at all levels from pre-primary to higher education. Adult education is the only form of education that may require payment. Most education and training is publicly funded and therefore naturally public. In addition to investing nationally in education, Finland has also channeled a significant share of its development cooperation budget into education programs. Finland is committed to a human rights-based approach to development. In education project, this is reflected by a specific commitment to promote both equality and quality in education. In the last 15 years, the share of girls in secondary education has clearly increased in the Finnish partner countries, from an average of 37% to 48%, which is very encouraging. Special attention has been paid to children with disabilities and their access to quality education, and this has happened with very good results. Our long-term cooperation partner countries in bilateral educational cooperation are Ethiopia, Mozambique, Nepal, and Palestine, as well as Myanmar. For cooperation in education has for the last years been close to 50 million, and almost 60% is channeled through bilateral aid. Finland has become a valued global leader in inclusive education. An external evaluation stated that Finland has been a leading light around the world in this field, and in certain countries the only prominent donor systemically taking the inclusive education agenda forward. Despite Finland's small size as a donor, it has been able to capitalize expertise, authority, and global prestige around this agenda in a way that has made a difference in the global agenda of inclusive education. I hope we can continue on this path. While continuing these initiatives, we have recently launched a new Education Finland cluster program, through which Finland has invited private educational providers to respond to education-related needs globally. Some companies specializing in offering digital learning platforms, educational games, quality assurance, support for evaluation, etc., have provided important customized solutions for different contexts. The program, which draws from experiences and innovation in the Finnish education system, has recently developed its own code of conduct. The privatization of education holds an increasingly large place in the educational debate. It is certain that everyone here today has joined, at least in part, due to a genuine and justified concern. How can we ensure that there are standards for private education provided, and that states have the power, tools and understanding to regulate and monitor the educational landscape with view of ensuring inclusive quality education for all learners without discrimination of any kind? Many concerns have emerged with the rapid expansion of privatization since the last decade, especially for developing countries where the public system might not have been sufficient capacity or where authorities might be unable to cope with rapidly rising demand. Privatization is deeply connected to financing possibilities, management flexibility, private regulation, and accountability. Regrettably, research has shown that human rights and the right to education have not been the key focus in these discussions. Private education can in worst cases have dreadful consequences on the social development of a country and individuals if it's not duly regulated and monitored, and if private actors are not held accountable. This brings me back to the principles of the Finnish education policy. In discussing private involvement in education, I do believe that we might have some lessons to learn from the Finnish education system and the values that it rests on. Aiming to reach equitable and inclusive education to which everyone ideally has free access would certainly stand in line with the quest of our common Agenda 2030, of leaving no one behind and assuring that each and every individual can reach their fullest potential. I look forward to seeing how the guiding principles develop. I believe the process and the discussions will be just as important as the end result, and I hope the guiding principles can be a conversation starter that will spur discussions on many other fora, not only among state leaders, but also among private actors and other stakeholders. These discussions ought to reach a much wider audience, and as awareness of this complex phenomenon of commercialization and its possible negative consequences, alongside with the positive ones if regulated properly, needs to increase. Now I wish to thank our co-organizers and the speakers and attendees here today for making this event possible, and encourage everyone to be active and take part in the discussion which will follow after this session. Thank you very much for your attention. This was a bit long, but I thought it would be very important for you to know what we talk about when we talk about Finnish example. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hakala. Let me pass the floor to Mr. Gave.
Thank you so much, Excellency, dear colleagues, dear friends. I'm really delighted to be part of this event on guiding principles for non-state actors in education, and very proud to co-sponsor this event. I particularly want to thank all the co-organizers, and I would like to thank the Special Rapporteur on the rights to education, and special thanks to Sylvain Aubry, who actually got us interested in this initiative. I want to commend their leadership and dedication. So Francis, supportive of this initiative. Non-state actors are getting stronger and stronger in education. They are big players in many countries, increasingly so. So there's no question that we need a framework that is shared with state actors. We actually sponsored the Dakar workshop last year, and we are looking harder at this critical issue. Now, what I want to do is to perhaps elaborate a little on why we think these guiding principles make sense and would add value. And I want to highlight two basic reasons, so from a French perspective. Firstly, as you rightly said, education matters enormously. It's the cornerstone of sustainable development. It's critical in terms of creating good jobs, boosting growth, eradicating poverty, fighting gender discrimination. It can unlock the human potential of a whole nation. So it's top priority for my government. We've been staunch supporters of SDG 4 on quality, inclusive and equitable education. We launched last year a new multi-year strategy for education. And the key thing about this strategy is human rights and dignity, equal access to lifelong education, accountability and quality education. We are also doing our utmost to push global or regional education initiatives. For example, we are very supportive of the Global Partnership for Education, and actually President Macky Sall of Senegal and President Macron just co-chaired the funding conference in Dakar last week. I think was pretty successful. So we believe education is a game changer. It's very powerful, can work wonders. But we also believe that doing the right thing in education is quite tricky. It's easy to get it wrong. So education can be a double-edged sword. You can get people to be more creative. You can help children blossom out. You can also learn them to be submissive and fearful. You can train them to have an open mind and seek others' perspectives. You can help them to understand other cultures, other beliefs, other ways of thinking. You can also learn them to distrust and despise those who think differently, behave differently, and have different beliefs. You can make people admire the rich, the strong, the successful, the beautiful. Just watch TV commercials or popular movies. You can also learn them that all human beings are born equal, and that the poor, the weak, the unfortunate are no less valuable than the rich, the strong, and the successful. You can educate the children of the affluent and the well-connected and patronize or dismiss the others. You can also apply the same high standards to all children and ensure they all access the same quality education. So education can do a lot of good, but it can also do a lot of harm if the inspiration is wrong. That's the first reason why we think we need shared, sensible guiding principles. We want to make sure that we go in the right direction. Secondly, education is, we think, the best and safer way to protect, strengthen, and expand human rights in the long term. Good progress has been made over the past decades. Most people across the world are better educated, they have more opportunities, their basic rights are enshrined in the constitutions of most countries, but these achievements are vulnerable. War, atrocities, violent repression, human trafficking, torture, even slavery are far from over. Many women are still denied job opportunities or a say in policy making. Many people are still held back, discriminated against, pushed aside or left behind because of origin, culture, race or belief. And today, I'm afraid we're seeing a pushback. against human rights and democracy. Many people all over the world are scared by globalization. Populist parties take advantage of that fear. They argue for authoritarian regimes and try to discredit and undermine the rule of law. The only way to protect human rights is to educate and empower children. The more they know about other culture, the more discerning they are, the more inquisitive their minds are, the more they will stand up for these rights. So human rights are beautiful, but frail flowers. They are hard to grow and easy to kill. So more than ever before, we need to think carefully about this issue. We need enlightened guiding principles for state and non-state schools. We also need to think carefully about how to get these principles done. We need to help governments build capacities to implement these standards. And that's the reason why we particularly welcome this broad-based consultation. We need to benefit from a variety of experiences, backgrounds, and ideas. So in closing, let me reiterate our support, and I look forward to an inspiring conversation. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
No.
I want to thank the organisers for inviting me to be a member of this panel. My name is Anne Skelton. I'm a member of the Committee on the Rights of the Child, and I want to begin by bringing greetings from the committee, from the chairperson who's unable to be here. My colleague, Madame Amal Al-Dosseri, is here. She's over there because she has to leave to be at the session that starts at 10. So our committee is in session today. But I'm delighted that I've been given leave by the chairperson to be here and share with you at this important debate. It's a surprising fact that in some developing countries, more children are enrolled in private school than in public school. In Sierra Leone, for example, 60% of secondary education school attendees are in the private system. In Sierra Leone, just a little less than that. So we can see that private education is, in some instances, taking over from public education. We also know that, as has been mentioned already, so many children are still out of school. So if we are going to achieve the 2030 SDG 4 goal of inclusive and quality education for all children, how are we going to do that? Now, there are some who see this as an opportunity for private role players to fill that gap, to come and help with, getting all children in school. There are others, however, who disagree and say that the only sustainable, scalable approach is to ensure that government provides education, because otherwise some children clearly will be left behind. And so this really is the debate, the heart of the debate. And at the center of it is the idea that education is a public good, that it is a state obligation. And there is some evidence that there are types of private education that actually have the effect of gutting the public education system. In other words, leaching from it its best teachers, its parents who have a voice, its parents who stand up and fight when they feel that their children's education is at risk. They all move to the private sector, leaving a weakened public education system and a state perhaps feeling that it doesn't have to work so hard to provide education in an equitable and inclusive and meaningful way. I say some types of private education because there are so many different models, and that's what makes the debate very complicated. There are religious private schools, there are expensive elite private schools, there are non-profit private schools, and there are business-oriented private schools. But it is the low-fee business-oriented schools that are growing the fastest, and that some feel pose the biggest risk to the public education systems. It's an emotive subject because parents will always do what they think is best for their children. And so for them, the ideologies of education as a public good is not what they're thinking about. They will vote with their feet and their hard-earned cash, and they will go to the schools that they think are better for their children. And I say they think are better for their children because it's a mirage in many instances that actually when they get into those schools, the children are not receiving a better education. But the parents obviously are not always able to assess that. They have limited ways of comparing and so on. So we've seen recently high courts in Kenya and Uganda upholding government decisions to close low-fee independent or private schools because of the fact that they are not keeping up with minimum standards. But then, on the other hand, there are other countries where there are no minimum standards and government is not taking any action. And so it's been something that the Committee on the Rights of the Child has been alert to and has begun to pay increased attention. In 2015, the committee, and that was before I joined the committee, recommended to Ghana, for example, that it should assess and address the consequences of the rapid development of private education in the state party and its impact on the full realization of children's right to education in accordance with the Convention, and ensure effective and efficient regulation and monitoring of private education providers. The committee has also pointed out the importance of regulation and monitoring to United Kingdom because of the fact that that country has holdings which relate to the provision of private education in developing countries. The Convention on the Rights of the Child places the primary responsibility for education on the state, as I would say do all the international instruments. Of course, it does leave some space for private service providers because it allows them to provide education, provided that it is in line with minimum standards that are set by the state. And that really brings us to today's deliberations. Private education will probably always be part of the complicated patchwork that makes up the education terrain, certainly for the foreseeable future. And this consultation aims to discuss the proposed guiding principles on the state's obligations with regard to private involvement in education. I was fortunate to attend a regional consultation on these minimum standards in South Africa and also to be involved in a side event in Brazil on these draft guidelines last year. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the perspectives here in Geneva on these important draft guidelines, and I look forward to the deliberations.
Thanks so much. So now we have the pleasure of listening to Dr. Boly Barry, the Special Rapporteur, over video. Just keep in mind it was taken on short notice, not high ordinance. As you like.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to share with you my views this morning. And first of all, I want just to say I'm sorry not to come and share my view in person with you, but it is really an administrative issue. I hope next time we can have time for that. I want to congratulate Sylvain and his team because the process who is beginning today on guide principles is really a wonderful tool to help us to be sure that we can also deal with partners who are private sector partners and help them to be more, how can I say, pertinent and help us to raise awareness and also contribute to the effectiveness of right of education. For me, it's a wonderful tool for also government and civil society because they can use this tool to monitor but also to be sure that they can build better education for people, for the whole people, children, adults, and also adolescents. And if I want also to share another dimension, I can just say it's a good tool. And at this stage, I want to advise the team to not only to make a conceptual work, it's also very important in the methodology to be sure that they can make some testing, to test this tool in a country, and to be sure that some elements and some aspects are really contextualized, because it's very, very important to get this tool at the end and make it operationalized. Now, for me, it's really also a contribution to be sure that the tool can be pertinent at the end of this process. I am sure also, because in this meeting we have many people who are high-level researchers, and I am sure that they are able to give us advice and to give insightful input in this process and help us to move forward. Thank you again, and I wish you a wonderful
one. What you just had until now was video recorded, so it will be live stream. It's available on the website of NORRAG and maybe also others. But from now on, we will not record on purpose, because this is called a consultation. We are using the Chatham House rules. That means that whatever we will discuss in this group will stay in the room. This will enable all of us to talk freely and to not necessarily represent organizations that are here. And because it is a consultation, and it is a consultation on a draft, so the final version is not there yet, and we want to really have a free and open discussion. So please do not share the draft until the final version is there. Parts of the world. Thank you very much for this opening session. And I would like to pass the floor to Sylvain and Delphine Dorsey, who will take it from here.